One. Welcome to our podcast, Serving in Business. This is your host, Steve Ramona, and I'm excited to bring on as a guest Neil Holmes. He is the founder of Voice Creative, and I've had a couple of great conversations with him. He definitely exemplifies serving in his business, and we want to talk more about that. Hey, Neil, welcome to the podcast.
Well, I do appreciate that. I'm wondering if I should do the whole interview like this.
Only if they understand Ireland.
It's a voice thing, you know. Sometimes you mess around.
See, you can tell he's a voiceover. Perfect.
Steve, thanks for having me, man.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Let's get started and let's talk how Voice Creative started and why you started it.
Wow. Voice Creative started in the last millennium. We were sitting around the campfire and it was we're going, we need some computers. And what's a computer? I don't know. No, it was late 90s. And I had been doing radio, and I love radio. I think radio is awesome. It's really, I think audio advertising is the most effective form of advertising. I'm sure we'll come back to that. But it got to the point where I'm on the air. I'm doing the disc jockey thing, and also in the production studio, which is the little room where we have a lot of sound equipment to make commercials. And I had more fun in there than actually being on the air. Some people prefer to be on the air, and I was just blown away by the opportunity to mix story and a sales message and all sorts of different sound effects and music beds and different types of delivery. We can yell, or we can get it, or really talk very soft and draw you in. And do all sorts of different things to work for our clients. And that's where my passion grew. And so I started in 96, I started Voice Creative. It was a sideline thing, and stayed in radio for years, until finally the stations I was with in upstate New York were sold. And that happens a lot in radio. Things change very quickly in radio. And so the stations were sold, and I said to myself, let's do Voice Creative full time. And we took it full time in the summer of 2001, which turns out later to be kind of a strange timing, but it all worked out great. We expanded from the city I was in to working with radio stations across the U.S. In many different states, and built some great friendships, some great opportunities to really help local clients, and did that for a while and branched out, and then also started working with TV stations, doing voiceovers for them and doing voiceovers. That led to voiceovers for smaller advertising agencies. I wasn't big on major cities. I wasn't big on huge advertising agencies, because my philosophy has always been, I don't care what you can pay. I want to make sure that you can have the best sound possible. So we're talking sometimes small markets, unrated markets, radio wise. They deserve to have a professional sounding advertisement for their clients, just like you would in New York or San Francisco or Los Angeles or Chicago. And so that became more of our focus. We don't get rich off of it, and that's fine. I'm not looking to get rich. I'm looking to do good things to help people grow and expand their business. Along the way, added a whole bunch of friends that do different voiceovers and different voice talent. Our roster is about 60 or so voice actors right now. Many of them, well, all of them work full-time jobs somewhere else, whether it's doing voiceover full-time for animation or narrations or audiobooks or things like that. We can help do all of that as well, and have the people to do it. There's a couple of people that they're just blow me away with their talents to do so many different characters from one voice. I'm not going to say they're Mel Blanc, but it's not, Mel Blanc, voice of Warner Brothers and Looney Tunes, but they're gifted, and it's a great group of people. And if I can put them to work helping others grow their business and feed their family, that's just a joy for me. that's where that comes from.
Well, joy is a great word, and that leads me to your bio I read that you rescued 10 dogs, and I'm a dog lover. I've got 2 right here with me. Doing something like that, how does that tie into your business? Because we know what we do in our personal life does affect our business. Tell me a little more about risking those dogs and how it impacted you professionally.
Well, let's see. So rescuing the dogs, a lot of times, to be straight up, it wasn't necessarily me. It was more my wife a lot of times. And that's only because she would go out and walk. The one specific one that is the most tragic, but the biggest success was a German Shepherd that we named Zen. We found him here in Louisville, Kentucky, years and years ago in Cherokee Park, which is an Olmsted designed park. And he was down by a creek, and it was 90 degrees by 9 a.m. And at first, my wife wasn't sure that she'd seen the dog. When she realized it, she went over and realized that this was a dog who was a full adult German Shepherd, but weighed only about 25 pounds. He had been neglected for that long and was, we found out later, living off corn and things like that, very skittish around flashlights and noises because he would go foraging at night for food. She couldn't carry him back to the car because she had another dog she was walking at the time, another rescue, who coincidentally was named Joy. And so when she got to the car, got Joy in the car, and then got back to where the German Shepherd was, because it's a one-way circle around there, she couldn't find the dog anymore. She couldn't find the dog we named Zen. It turned out that he had tried to follow her, apparently, out of the park. He couldn't walk very well. He was very close. He had tripped and stumbled and was in the creek. He had fallen in the creek, and the only thing above water was his nose. So he was also near drowning. So she got him out of the creek, brought him home. His ears were packed with mange, cleared that up. So he grew into be about 80 to 90 pounds. And just the sweetest dog you've ever met. Actually, all our dogs have been very, very sweet. And I think a lot of that comes from my wife, who is very, very sweet and such an animal lover. She'll put you to shame, Steve. She's a big dog person. And we rescued another German Shepherd who was bigger, the biggest dog we've ever had, from a family in upstate New York who just couldn't take care of him anymore. Their kids were getting to that age where the dog was becoming a challenge. And we had a foxhound follow us out of the woods in Virginia. She was adorable and very sweet. But she didn't like the German Shepherds much. So if they were at the food bowl for too long, she would put her head down and charge into the German Shepherd, knock him off the food bowl, and he'd be like, all right, that's fine. But that's just one of the joy. You talked about how does it affect what I'm doing with Voice Creative. It's because it's inspiring. Because these are just creatures who just give love. That's all they do.
Amen.
They will protect you, and they will give you love. And I'm not always at home, obviously. I have a job. So that the dogs are home with my wife is a comfort to me. I mean, right now we rescued a Dalmatian who will just yell and yell, but when it comes down to it, she's the biggest chicken of them all. I mean,
aren't they all the yellers? Yeah, the yellers do that.
Back away.
Yeah, and it's great that you said that, Neil, because I believe in business we need to know people a little deeper. Audience out there, you just learned a story from Neil, almost got me in tears. But this is the heart he has. Would you rather work with Neil or somebody else you've just met from an email or a phone number? This is why I love doing these podcasts, because we want to learn about these businesses out there, like Voice Creative. And by the way, I'll put all his contact info in this podcast so you can reach out. Let's talk about your favorite book and why you love it. Go ahead.
1 second first. You mentioned the heart, and it reminded me of a quote, a paraphrase from Stephen King, where he talked about how he had they talk about how do you write all these things. He says, because I have the heart of a little boy. It's at home in a jar on my mantelpiece. and so that is a great line, and it doesn't affect. Obviously,
Yes.
I still have my heart in it, and so does
Yeah.
Stephen King. But so talk about a book. You said you mentioned that before, and I'm thinking, gosh, there's so many great books I've read, and the the one from the Black Swan Group right now is a very strong contender, and I can't remember the name of the title of it. It's about negotiation. But the one that really struck into my head was, I believe her name is Lynn Truss, and she wrote a book a while ago called Eats, Shoots, and Leaves. And the big drama there is where the comma is placed. It's all about punctuation, and I'm a literal nerd, as my daughter will uh, attest to. Let it go, Dad. Uh, and so it's eat, comma, shoots, and leaves. Maybe it's eats. Yeah, it's not, I don't remember now right now. But it's all about having the comma in the wrong place. Because if you say shoots, eats, shoots, and leaves versus eats, shoots, and leaves, there's a whole different thing there. Anyway, all about the interpretation. And for a voice person, you've got to have the punctuation in the right place on the script, and that makes a lot of difference. And so that book is a great thing. I mean, you started with um Strunk and White, which is very academic. This one is a lot more friendlier. So if you're going to try and help your kids understand English grammar, eats, shoots, and leaves.
I love it. One thing that came to my mind as you were talking is voiceovers, and you're right, audio is always going to be king when it comes to marketing, because you can hear in this audio podcast, you can feel the passion, that story you just said about rescuing the dogs. But is your voice creative available to a certain market, or can a small business, that small little, dry cleaning shop, could they use a voiceover as well? How would that work?
Absolutely. When I mentioned we were doing fine through the once we took voice creative full time, and then the pandemic hit, and like everybody else, well, almost everybody else, we had a big downturn. Advertising basically shut down because people weren't being allowed to leave their house. So why advertise buying a new pair of shoes at the mall when you can't get to the mall? So we lost a lot of our station clients, and many of them haven't come back yet because some have been sold. I mentioned that happens a lot. I recently learned that one that we worked for has changed formats, so they're now playing a different kind of music. And that happens, but anybody can use a voiceover, and if you're doing some sort of advertising, if you're doing television or radio or my program called Zipvertising or anything like that, you can do it yourself. There are strong reasons to do it yourself, and there are strong reasons not to do it yourself. There's a reason there's a voiceover industry, and that's because not everybody can be eloquent or convey the right tone. We all have our strengths as humans. Some people are, my wife, for example, who is just a giver. And there are some people who find it among themselves that they think that, they're just going to collect everything they can or whatever. And if you get into business, there are people that are good at advertising. There are people that are good at making shoes. There are people that are good at writing novels. We each have our strengths, and we need to work together, because working together is the only way we advance ourselves and make this a better world. You hire somebody to help with your online SEO, then get out of the way and let them do what they're hired to do. You hire somebody to help you communicate and build a network, and Steve's in phone, and you get out of the way and let Steve help you do that. That's just the way things go. If we do that, if we don't try and do everything ourselves, I think the world becomes a better place, because we do start communicating more and realizing that, that person who's across the street that I've really never said anything to, they're not that different from me. We all have our likes and dislikes. We all want to see the world better for our kids, and our grandkids, and so on. So now I am feeling old because I just said grandkids.
Yeah. Well, and it's a blessing as well, grandkids. You said something, and I just wrote it down in my notes, is get out of the way. Such a great phrase, because I tell people, when you take your car to the mechanic, You don't change the spark plugs. You take it to the mechanic because he's the expert. In this case, Neil's the voiceover expert. I'm an expert in phone. Your lawyer's the expert. In this world, we need to reach out to the people that can help us, the right people, the people who want to
Yes.
serve us. And Neil, I appreciate that comment because that's a slap in the face of get out of the way, let somebody, the expert. My dad also always said, do not recreate the wheel that's already been built. And that's an old
Yeah,
phrase, but
I agree with you. The mechanics example is a great one. I'm not opposed to simple things like if you can change your own oil, that's fine. But I'm not going to try and do my own brakes. I mean, I probably could do it. I'm sure there's videos online that would show me how to do it. But when it comes down to it, I want somebody who knows what they're doing so that when I hit that pedal, I stop. And I don't know that I'd have the confidence in myself right away. So, I
yeah,
can
no,
change my oil, but I won't do my brakes.
right. And that leads to you, Neil, the voice creative, using that. If you're comfortable, like you said, he can help you even if you want to do it yourself. That's still getting out of the way. Let Neil teach you and educate you, because YouTube, I love YouTube. I use it for solving problems, but I think we're becoming a YouTube community, a YouTube world where I'm just going to go YouTube and it's going to show me how to change my brakes. It's going to tell me how to do brain surgery. No, that's not what YouTube's for. And I think that if you asked Google, that's probably the case. But I love going down this path because when you're getting out of the way, you're allowing somebody to serve you, which, audience, that's important. Let's allow Neil to serve you if that's something you do, or maybe your cousin, family, or friend. Get out of the way. Almost
Yeah, our
change the name
goal
of my podcast.
yeah, our goal is about service. It's if you want to learn how to I mentioned Zipvertising, which is our program for online advertising in streaming audio, and podcasts and that sort of thing. And if you want to do that yourself, if that's in your wheelhouse, you're comfortable doing that, great, I'll show you how to do it. I have no problem with that. If you want some guidance from somebody who's been in advertising for years, I'm happy to jump in there too. I've got, as I mentioned, like 60 different voice actors. We can cover that, and decades of copywriting experience that makes sure that your message, that your unique selling position is the one that will move people. And rest assured, I will never yell at anybody. We do not do yelling car dealer ads or any ads like that. Our ads are based on the way we buy, which is humans buy on emotion. We like to think that we make it a logical decision, but we don't. We all buy on emotion and then justify it to ourselves. Oh, there's a new pair. Look at those shoes. I want those shoes. But I have a conference next week. Perfect. And you justified buying the shoes. That's the kind of thing that works. One of the other great things about Zipvertising, and throwing a little plug here, is that when you get on the audio streaming, unless somebody's gone the Hulu plan where they buy commercial free, you can do that through some of the audio plans too, skip the commercials. But most people don't when it comes to streaming audio. When they listen to podcasts, they still get the commercials and they can't skip them. So over the course of 6 months to a year, being on there faithfully, you actually are building your brand and becoming more top of mind. So even when people won't reach out to you in the first couple of months, they will later. And I've had people who have even stopped advertising, been off the air for a couple of years, and come back and said, I just got another hit on that landing page that we thought wasn't going to get any more. It was built for your Zipvertising campaign, and people are still accessing it after we've been off the air for a couple of years, because we built their branding, their relationship with people. They're remembered. And that's what we're all trying to do so that we can be of service.
That's fantastic, Neil. And I want to thank you for being on. This has been great. The dog story you just told, I'm going to listen to that back in. And audience, listen to that over and over again. Need to be feeling inspired. Listen to Neil's story because it's inspiring me. Go ahead.
I have to say one more thing. I said we get back to why audio is the most powerful.
Yeah.
And I'm just do it quickly with a demonstration. There's a girl on a hill by a tree. Everybody who's listening now just saw that, but everybody who's listening saw a different image. And that's the power of audio advertising. You've read a novel and then seen the movie, And the movie didn't quite live up to your hopes because the way you saw it when you read the book is different than the producers saw it when they did the movie. That's not bad, it's just different. But using that in audio lets the image, because the listener creates their own image, they remember it longer. And that's one of the strongest things about audio advertising. Whether you do it on the radio, which is still a great medium, whether you do it through streaming audio, which is an upcoming great medium because of its targetability, these are great things that help your brand build.
I love it. And audience, write into me. Tell me what you see when you see the woman on the hill, the girl on the hill. I'd love to see what you have to say. And I like to close. And again, I want to thank Neil again. This has been great. I always like to close for Serving in Business podcast. What is one business tip that you want to give the audience that's really helped you succeed to where you are today?
My mother always said, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. The key is you have to listen, so that you can ask the right questions, because people are not trying to fool you. They're not trying to steer you the wrong way. They're doing the best they can, as we do, to answer the question. So you really have to listen. And that's the biggest thing. Plus, you can listen to the radio too. But I meant when you're having conversations with people, you really have to listen.